Hello, everyone. Welcome back. This is High Street Sports. I am Chris. This is John Ross. This is week 4 in college football, week 3 in the NFL, respectively. We'll get into both of those things. But before we get started, always make sure to go to the youtube.com/High Street Sports. Check us out. Give us a subscribe. Give us a like, comment. Tell us what you want to see. Tell us if you hate us. Tell us if you love us, whatever the case is. We need it all the criticism, all the feedback. We're growing here. We're having fun. We're happy to be here. John Ross, what did you think about the last couple weeks in football between the college football and NFL last week?
What's up, buddy? Yeah, fun. Another fun week of football, NFL and college. This week, though, biggest week so far, we have 6 ranked matchups. We got the Quacks versus whatever Sound of Buffalo makes and the Coach Prime train. We got Ole Miss and Bama, and we got the Ohio State Buckeyes going to South Bend, Indiana to take on the Notre Dame Fighting Irish in prime time in BC. Let's get into it. I'm hyped. You see the screen in the back. That is me this weekend watching college football. Patrick Starr. Shout out Patrick Starr. Let's go. Let's get into it.
Let's get it. I love it. Let's go. We're here. It's week 4. Let's get into it. As John Ross mentioned, pretty packed schedule for the first time this season. So we'll have some top to bottom pretty good games all day on Saturday. Let's start here. Making an appearance back in the poll. Back in the poll or for the first time?
Florida. First time.
First time this season. Big win for Florida over Tennessee last week. Propels them. Rostradamus got that one right. Florida propels itself into the top 25 with a matchup against Charlotte. A pretty good opportunity for Florida to keep riding that wave of momentum. Humongous win at home for Billy Napier and company down in Gainesville. A lot to be excited about, now with they came off of an early loss, bounced back with a big win. Florida ranked number 25. What do you think about their matchup against Charlotte?
Yeah, a lot of momentum for the Gators right now. They're minus 28. I'll take them to cover that. I don't know much about Charlotte. I know they're not very good, though. Huge win for Florida last week. I just the whole time I was like, it's the Swamp's going to be rocking. That's a hard place to play, no matter how good or bad Florida is, especially at night. Defense looked really good. Offense, Graham Mertz looked pretty good. Their running game looked stout. But, yeah, Florida keeps it rolling.
Yeah, and, it can't be understated how big that win was for Billy Napier. You talk about a program that its fans were, they're a fickle bunch down there. They haven't really had a whole lot to cheer about since Urban Meyer left. And that was a coach and team that desperately needed to have a win like that, and they got it. So look for them to continue rolling against a very, very undermanned Charlotte team. So yeah, Florida will look to keep the ball rolling this week. Moving on, we'll skip number 24 at the moment. We'll get to that one a little bit later. We'll go to number 23, Tennessee. A disappointing week on the other side of that field last week in Gainesville. I may or may not have gotten into a couple arguments with Tennessee fans warning them about Joe Milton, and those things seem to be peeking through here. Those concerns that a lot of people have. It looks like Joe Milton's a guy who obviously he's a huge dude, rocket arm. Had a pretty good day passing the ball against Florida last week, but when you talk about winning close games and winning, those tough games on the road, that's what you worry about with Joe. His track record at Michigan was not very good, and then he ends up in Tennessee and now is a starter there, and gets dealt a pretty big loss last week. They dropped down to number 23. They play UTSA this week. What's the vibe there in Volunteer land, John Ross?
Yeah, well, you may get in arguments with them. I'm surrounded by them down here, and I just sit and listen to them and laugh internally. But I shared your opinion the whole time about Bazooka Joe. He's just got a big arm. He's big. There's really nothing else to him. And for someone his size, he really doesn't run it as much as you'd like him to, which is really weird. But yeah, their offense really struggled. Like if he's not hitting the deep shots, they don't really have anything else. Yeah, but they're minus 21 back in Neyland this week against UTSA, a team who, unfortunately for them, is 1-2 so far this season. A team a lot of people thought could be a contender out of the group of 5. I believe their quarterback Frank Harris got hurt in the second game. So, but yeah, they're really struggling right now, and I think Tennessee bounces back this week and gets a win at home.
Yeah, you got to think too that a lot of that mess could have been avoided at the end of that game if Heupel doesn't call that timeout, which to me seemed nothing more than petty. But boy, that Florida offensive lineman was ready to, ready to get it. So yeah, Tennessee got punched in the mouth last week. No pun intended. And they dropped
some Florida men didn't jump the stands and try to join in.
As soon as that stuff started happening,
that's the wrong place to start a brawl. Gainesville, Florida, man.
Yeah, as soon as that stuff started to happen, I was like, "Oh God, they gotta get a handle on this one pretty quickly." But yeah, that's Tennessee. Coach Heupel play stupid games, win stupid prizes. Call timeout that late in a game that was in hand, and that's what you're gonna get. So. Yeah, Tennessee bounces back, gets a win before they move into the meat of that SEC schedule. Moving up, number 20, Miami at Temple. Miami is, building some momentum down there in Coral Gables. They go to Temple. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, Miami looks good, man. The biggest win so far is A&M. They haven't really played anybody else other than that, but they play at Temple. They're minus 23.5. I think they get the win here. I think they do cover and keep it rolling. They keep it rolling, man, and Florida State keeps it rolling. We could be in for the first really good Miami FSU game in a long time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree.
That being said, do they still play each other like every year? I know Florida and Florida State do.
I'm not sure, but if they don't, they should.
Yeah, that's kind of weird to me. I mean, they're both in the same conference for now, at least, but you'd think they would play each other every year. I mean, I know the rivalry isn't what it used to be, but if they do play each other this year, hopefully it's a lot to be excited about. But yeah, Canes keep it rolling.
Yeah, Canes look to go up to Philadelphia and get a win at Temple. Moving on up, we'll go to number 18, Duke at UConn. Duke, another team who, just kind of keeps on rolling here in the early going. They go to UConn, a team that has already lost to an ACC team in NC State. Duke looks to go get a win. Not sure there's much else that needs to be said about that one. What do you think about Duke?
Yeah, Duke looks good so far. They handled Northwestern last week. UConn, kind of a disappointing year for them after a surprisingly good year last year. But, yeah, I think the Blue Devils keep it rolling this week. They're minus 21.5. I take them to cover that.
Yeah, State only beat them, I think, 24-14 in week one. State, I don't think has a very good offense, so there's not much to go on based off that one. So I think Duke has a chance to cover. That could be a bit of a messy one. I'm not sure, what to think about Duke's offense up there, but I think they could cover. So moving on up, number 17, North Carolina. At Pitt, it's a game where what is the spread in that one?
Carolina minus 7.5.
Yeah, Carolina minus 7.5 going on the road at Pitt. Pitt, not a very good football team. I think Carolina covers in that one.
Yeah, I mean, Carolina looked good last week against I'm blanking. Minnesota. They beat a pretty good defense. Drake May struggled a little bit, but his teammates picked him up, which is a good thing after last year because that did not happen. So nice to see them get the win last week. It's a sick shot of Drake doing the finger roll of the football when he got that rushing TD. But yeah, Pitt's doing all right this year. The past few years they've been a pretty good football team. Pat Narduzzi's a good coach, and Pitt's not an easy place to play. But I think Carolina will win, but I think Carolina seems like they really struggle on the road going back to last year. So I think they win in overtime and don't cover.
Yeah, it's a game that, if Drake May is going to want to keep his Heisman hopes alive, he's going to have to start turning it on. And what better place to do that than at Pitt this weekend? So we'll look out for that one. Moving on up, number 16, Oklahoma at Cincinnati. An interesting one, and what would have been, Cincinnati's moving up to the Big 12, would have been a conference game. Oklahoma is leaving after this year to go to the SEC, so that is no longer a conference look-ahead type game for Cincinnati. But, this is a big game, for Cincinnati. What do you think about the Sooners visiting the Bearcats?
Yeah, Sooners minus 14.5. Cincinnati dropped a tough one last week. I think a game-expiring field goal to Miami of Ohio. So they're definitely rebuilding a little bit after Luke Fickell left. Oklahoma looks good, man. The defense looks really good. Dylan Gabriel, their quarterback, looks good. I think Oklahoma's forced 5 turnovers in all 3 of their games so far.
Wow.
So definitely Brent Venables is putting his stamp on that defense. But, yeah, I think the Sooners keep it rolling here, and I do think they cover against a kind of a mediocre Cincy team.
Yeah, like you said, it's a bit of a rebuild for Cincy, and like I mentioned earlier, they've got a tall task heading into the Big 12 next year. But yeah, Oklahoma has looked good on both sides of the ball, really. And I don't think that Cincy, unfortunately, isn't going to pose much of a threat to the Sooners in this one. So Oklahoma will
keep
visit.
it rolling because we got the Red River rivalry in 2 weeks.
Yeah, which could be, both of those teams.
I know they're going to be wanting some payback after losing 49-0 last year.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Oklahoma wins this week at Cincinnati. Moving on, number 14, Oregon State against number 21, Washington State. What are your thoughts on the Beavs and Washington State?
Cougars.
Washington State Cougars. What do you got?
Yeah, it's Beavs -3, over under 58.5. Oregon State got it done last week. I think they won by a few touchdowns. They kind of struggled there for a little bit. Who did they play off the top of my head? They played San Diego State. It kind of sleptwalked through a little bit of that. DJ Uiagalelei had 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. But Washington State, coming off that big win against Wisconsin, they look really good. Cam Ward, their quarterback, he's somebody that seems like the Pac-12 it seems like every team has a really good quarterback this year, and Cameron Ward is just another example. But yeah, I'm going to take the Cougs in this one. Being at home, I think they get another big win and keep shooting up those rankings and into contender status in the Pac-12.
Yeah, I mean, I don't hate that pick at all. Washington State, has come out of the gates pretty hot. And, Oregon State has too. They've looked pretty good. As you mentioned a couple weeks ago, DJ Uiagalelei looks like a completely different quarterback and, kind of what they expected him to be. Not necessarily on, he was a highly recruited guy. He hasn't really lived up to those expectations, but he looks like, a guy that's kind of starting to figure it out if he hasn't already at Oregon State in his new home. That's going to be a tough road game for them. In a team like Washington State who looks to make a splash in the surprisingly deep Pac-12 this year.
The last ride.
I will go, the last ride, and they're making it a good one so far. I will go ride the hot hand in that one. Washington State will get that one done.
Roll Cougs.
Roll Cougs, now that I remember what their mascot is. Moving on up the list in what is now shaping up to be kind of a really, really important game for Alabama after, dropping in the polls to number 13. Alabama faces number 15 Ole Miss. That is a 3:30 game this weekend. Alabama is going to need to figure something out if they want to even, stay hanging around the top 10, top 15. They don't look good. And that's kind of, the only way that you can put it. Nick Saban, for the first time in some time, does not have a clear quarterback that he can, run with and do the things that Alabama is used to doing. And they don't look great on defense either for the most part. What are your thoughts on Alabama and Ole Miss?
Yes, Bama -6.5. I'm sure they're glad to be going for this to be a home game because I think this is absolutely as must win as you can get. This is do or die for Bama. If nothing else, for pride, honestly, especially after, you lost at home to Texas and you go to South Florida and just have to struggle the whole way there. I was shocked that Jalen Milroe didn't touch the field after how bad the other 2 quarterbacks were playing, especially Tyler Buchner. My God, that was one of the worst quarterback performances I've ever seen. But yeah, I think the day after Nick Saban announced that Jalen Milroe is a starter, and I know he struggled against Texas, but he gives them the best chance to win. And I do think the crowd will be fired up. I think Bama will be fired up, knowing that I'm sure they know, and I'm sure Nick Saban has made it known that this is a must-win to them, and I think they get the win at home against Ole Miss. I think the defense steps up in a big way against a really, really powerful offense.
You're going to need them to, and I think at this point, This isn't, the usual team that Nick Saban and Alabama have. They're still a talented roster top to bottom, no doubt. But I think, they're missing that quarterback piece. And I think there is something to be said. Like there's quarterback competitions that spill into the season. You've seen it in Columbus, and with the way that Ohio State turned around last week, once the quarterback knows that there's nobody really breathing over his shoulder, that it is his team, it's his offense, and you can go out there and play free and play to your ability rather than to worry about not having to make a mistake. And if you do make a mistake, then you're going to get yanked. So hopefully Jalen Milroe has that confidence, and Nick Saban, you can only hope. In those Alabama fans, and I will be honest here, it is kind of fun to watch Alabama fans just absolutely melt down on every form of social media that there is. But yeah, I don't really see I don't think that it's impossible for Ole Miss to go in here and get this win. But a pissed off Nick Saban and a pissed off Alabama is not good for anybody to see. So I'll follow you there. Can you remind me of the spread real quick in that one?
-6.5, Bama.
Yeah, I think that's probably right. I think it will be a slugfest, and if not, I think Alabama by 10 or so. And this would be a humongous win for Lane Kiffin. So there's a lot at stake on the other sideline too.
Be crazy if I think he probably wouldn't say this, but you got to think Saban's in the back of his mind, like, I cannot lose to 2 former assistants in the same year.
After, a track record of him not losing to assistants, that would be kind of crazy. Yeah. So I think Alabama does pull this one out. But I think, Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss come in swinging, and I think they swing hard, and it'll be a punch, counter punch kind of game. But should be an exciting one, 3:30 in Tuscaloosa. Moving on up, number 12, LSU. In a game against Arkansas here, night game in Baton Rouge, so that doesn't really speak well for Arkansas. What do you think about the Tigers in this one?
Yeah, it's -17.5 LSU. They looked really good last week, man. Going at Mississippi State, I thought it was going to be kind of a tough game for them because Mississippi State, they're a veteran team, they have a veteran quarterback, but man, LSU came out firing on all cylinders. The Jaden Daniels, Malik Neighbors connection is alive. He had 2 touchdowns and over 200 yards. 180 of those came in the first half. Jaden, 2 touchdowns to the air, 2 on the ground. Defense looked really good. Harold Perkins was lined up at edge, especially on 3rd and long, and they were letting him do what he does best. The line looked good. Secondary looked really good too. The corners' names weren't called, which is a good thing. I think Mississippi State's quarterback had under 100 yards passing. So, yeah, it's just a great week for the Tigers. And it got me to thinking, like, I know the loss to FSU sucks, and it was nice to get that. But if you think about it, LSU's really only had one bad quarter of that fourth quarter in that game, one bad quarter of football this year, because Jaden Daniels still threw for 340 yards in that game.
Mm-hmm.
So I think they keep it rolling this week. -17.5. I think they cover that and blow the Hogs out in Baton Rouge.
Yeah, it's a night game.
Statement.
It's a night game in Baton Rouge, and yeah, I mean, like you said, it's a God. We have a funny way of doing that on the show. It's good to see LSU come back and look like they did last week. And like you mentioned, one bad quarter against FSU, and FSU looks to be a for real contender this year. So when you get in that territory of one loss early, you would much rather lose a game early if you're going to drop one. And I think for LSU, it could have been a good one in hindsight, and I think they do build on that and keep it rolling this week. And I think they do cover that against the Hogs and move on.
Just keep winning, man.
Yeah,
the SEC West is vulnerable. Georgia's beatable. Just keep rolling.
We'll get to that in a little bit. Number 11, Utah.
Damn Tigers.
Number 11, Utah versus number 22, UCLA. Utah is a team that looks to go out and, continue to build. Like we mentioned numerous times throughout the start of the season, the Pac-12 is deep. And they've got a number of teams on this, top 25 list. These are 2 of them. What do you think about Utah and UCLA?
Oh, yeah. 1 of 3 ranked games in the Pac-12 this week. It's Utes -4.5 coming back home. Who did they play last week? Weber State. They beat them pretty soundly. The defense kept playing like they did. Cam Rising didn't play again. Like we said, probably smart not to play him against a team like that. I haven't seen if he's playing this week. Whether or not he does, though, I think the Utes keep it rolling being at home, and I think they win against UCLA, even though UCLA is looking really good so far.
Yeah, UCLA is flashing a little bit early. They found themselves ranked in the top 25, and I don't think that's by any accident. But I do think Utah is the much better team here, top to bottom. I think Utah keeps it rolling at home, beats UCLA. Moving on into the top 10. Number 10, Oregon versus number 19, Colorado. Coach Prime and the Buffs squeak one out last week in overtime. And, they have a massive loss. Travis Hunter is out for the next 3 weeks. And what I can only describe as the second most dirty hit that I saw last weekend. That kid for Colorado State, his name slips me, a team captain who really went out there and made a very dangerous and irresponsible hit on Travis Hunter. Coach Prime took the high road.
Lacerated liver.
Lacerated liver. Yeah, lacerated liver. And that, in my opinion, that should have every right for a referee to throw a targeting penalty on that play as they would something above like the head or neck area. That hit, that type of, just reckless play has no place on a football field, especially coming from a team captain. And if I'm Jay Norvell, if that's the kind of program that you want to run, and if that's how you want your captain out there acting, especially your defensive captain, then that type of stuff has no place in football anywhere. That being said, that is a tough loss for Colorado to lose Travis Hunter for 2 very important games in the next 2 weeks. Oregon is a 21-point favorite. I don't really see that, outside the realm of possibility. What do you think about the Ducks and Buffs?
I think the big thing here is the over-under 70.5. Oregon, I think, has put up 147 points in 3 games. They haven't played anybody. I'll give you that. But yeah,
81
Colorado,
of those came against Portland.
Yeah. Colorado last week, like you said, squeaked out a win in overtime against Colorado State, a rivalry game. Chippy, from the moment both teams got off the bus, there was a brouhaha at midfield during the pregame warm-ups. But yeah, definitely Chippy throughout the whole game, and Colorado really struggled, especially after Travis Hunter went out. Shedeur stepped up, though, and had a clutch moment in overtime to get him the win. But minus 21 Ducks, I'll take them, and I'll take them to cover that, man. I think I still believe in Coach Prime. I think he's doing great things there, and I think he's going to keep doing great things, even better things. But I think the Buffs are going to get punched in the mouth this week going on the road to Oregon.
Yeah, it's going to be a tough fall from reality here. I just don't like at all what I saw out of Colorado's defense last week. They gave up a lot of points to a Colorado State team, which they probably shouldn't have. Oregon can move the ball. They can score points. And as you alluded to, I mean, they've scored a bunch of points in the first 3. So I think, unfortunately, a pretty rough fall back to reality for the Buffs that might see them unranked after this week, depending on how it goes. I hope Shedeur can keep it close. I hope those, the other receivers and them can make plays to keep them in it long enough. But I think Oregon wins big in this one, which is, like you said, unfortunate.
Regardless of that, we said it enough. Shout out Coach Prime, man. That man had me staying up to 2 a.m. last week to watch Colorado versus Colorado State. The man's changing college football, and I love it.
Oh, absolutely. And you look at the sidelines. I mean, there's just celebrity after celebrity there. Lil Wayne came out and did a pregame performance on the field, which
he led them out on the field.
Yeah, and that's big time stuff, and that's huge for a program like Colorado, who is a very proud program.
They got Kawhi Leonard at the crib.
Yeah, Kawhi can't even show up to his own games. What are we even doing here? How does this work? But yeah, Colorado, a lot of momentum. I don't think it's all going to go away. I mean, obviously the program's in a good spot with Prime, but this week is not going to go well. So we'll move on. Number 8, Washington versus Cal. Pac-12 after dark here. This one kicks off at 10:30 on the West Coast. Washington, Michael Penix Jr. continues to look really, really good. The Washington receivers look really good. They're, probably the most productive receiver room in the country right now. What do you think about Washington versus Cal?
Yeah, Washington minus 20.5, over under 59.5. What they've done so far this year gives me no reason to think they won't cover that and contribute a lot to beating that over. Michael Penix Jr., man, what can you say? Through 3 games, he has 1,332 yards. I want to say 9 touchdowns, 1 interception. He's thrown for 400 yards every game. I'll make it known here on episode 12 of High Street Sports. If the Heisman ceremony was today, Michael Penix Jr. would win it. He's the front runner right now. The dude is playing out of his mind. Their receivers, like you said, crazy receiver room. I think I texted you earlier this week. The past 2 games, 9 and 10 receivers have caught balls respectively. That would make my head spin as a defensive coordinator, knowing you've got that many guys over there on the sideline who can catch passes. But yeah, Huskies keep it rolling here, man. They're Michael Penix Jr. is front runner for Heisman for me, and Washington is a serious college football playoff contender.
Yeah, you said everything, and like you said,
the defense is playing well too. I know they beat a good Boise State team. People shouldn't forget that, and they haven't really played anybody since. I mean, they went to Michigan State. I know Michigan State's dealing with some distractions, but that's a quality opponent to go to on the road to and punch them in the mouth and blow them out on their own field. The defense is playing well. Offense is playing phenomenal. Yeah, Huskies big. Huskies keep it rolling. Sorry to cut you off.
I just don't feel like I don't think I need to add anything on this game.
It's a show, man.
Took the words right out of my mouth. We texted earlier this week and talked about Michael Penix Jr. and the job that he's been doing. And I agree 100% that if the season ended today, Michael Penix Jr. would be holding the Heisman. And, good for him. He's a guy that went through a lot, went through some injury things, started at Indiana, left Indiana, and, has really found his way in Washington and is just absolutely annihilating the defenses that are lined up across from him. So we'll see, what happens as they move further into Pac-12 play. But it's damn sure exciting up there in Washington right now. So Huskies big against Cal on that one. Moving on up to a ranked matchup in the Big Ten, number 7 Penn State hosts number 24 Iowa in what looks to be, exciting game in Happy Valley. It's a 7:30 kickoff. Penn State has looked pretty good in the early going. Drew Aller looks really good. And, the rest of that offense has looked pretty good too. Iowa has also, looked pretty good in the early going, winning the Cyhawk matchup a couple weeks ago. What do you think about Penn State versus Iowa?
Yeah, it's Penn State minus 15, over under 40. I'm tempted to take the under on that just because, this looks like it has all the makings of an old school Big Ten slugfest. But being in Happy Valley, I'll take the Nittany Lions to cover in this one. Iowa I don't think they have the horses on offense to keep up. I think Penn State's offense is the best it's been in a while and can neutralize Iowa's strength, which is its defense. But, I think the Nittany Lions keep it rolling in this one.
Yeah, I think this one could be ugly. It could be a slugfest. Anytime you play Iowa in a night game, I don't know what it is about it, but there's just something there. Iowa is, they don't show up to any away stadium scared, and they never have. If there's one thing you can attribute to Kirk Ferentz is that, for the most part, he's got his guys ready to go. But I do think that Penn State will squeak this one out at home. That's a tough place to go in and win a game, especially at night. So I look for that one to be a pretty close one, but I do think Penn State comes out on top of that one. Moving on to the game of the week. Number 6 Ohio State travels to South Bend, Indiana to take on the number 9 Notre Dame Fighting Irish. This is going to be a very exciting game. Marcus Freeman, Notre Dame's head coach, has come out earlier this week and said that they will not play to not lose this game, like he admitted to doing last year. Tyler Buchner just was not the guy that was going to walk into Columbus and get him a win. But you have a guy in Sam Hartman that has the ability to go out there and, play well enough for Notre Dame to get this win. Ohio State, really took the top off last week. Ryan Day said that they were going to, ratchet up the intensity on both sides of the ball. They did so. They beat, a fairly good offense in Western Kentucky. The defense looked pretty good for the most part. Offense looks good under Kyle McCord, in having that continuity that I talked about earlier, kind of in the similar situation to Jalen Milroe. Kyle McCord knows it's his show now, and takes the Buckeyes into a humongous game early on in the season for the Buckeyes and for the Fighting Irish. What do you think about the Buckeyes versus the Fighting Irish?
Oh, yeah. Massive game for both teams, college football playoff implications. I told you earlier this week, you could make the case whoever wins this game is the best team in the country, in my opinion. Notre Dame, they have a dude back there at quarterback now, Sam Hartman. He can sling that thing. Their receivers, running backs look good. They have one of the best offensive lines in the country. The defense looks really good. And one of the guys I work with, he's a big Notre Dame fan. I think he told me they're getting arguably their best linebacker back this week after being out last week. But, yeah, they'll be at home. That place will be rocking. Ohio State comes in after their best performance, especially on offense of the season. Kyle McCord looked great. He utilizing all those weapons they have. Defense looked really good against a very potent passing attack in Western Kentucky and Austin Reed. Yeah, this is a tough one, man, because curious to see how Kyle McCord does, his first-time starter going into a tough environment like that. Notre Dame, they're going to be fired up, especially with just the hype seems to be deserved for them this year because of Sam Hartman. But it's Buckeyes -3. I'll take the Buckeyes in this one. I think they have too many weapons, and I think the defense will step up in a big way to get the win on the road and vault them into the upper echelon of the college football rankings.
Yeah, and I'm gonna go ahead and agree with you there. I like what I'm seeing out of Ohio State right now, and I really do think that last week they took a step. Ryan Day said they had to take a step, and that was a game in which, watching it as, both a fan and just an overall observer of college football, that is a game where you need to take a step going into a game like this. This is one of the, historic venues in college football. It is a huge game all the way around, college football playoff implications, and just, pecking order implications as far as the best teams in the country go. I have, thoughts on this game as a fan, and I have already made a score prediction, as I alluded to in episode 11. My score prediction was Ohio State 42, Notre Dame 17, and I will stand by that. I think the Buckeyes defense is elite. They've got good corners. Denzel Burke and company really look like they're out to prove a point. I think they will do that this week. I think the Buckeyes are going to, rocket themselves up to the top of the country as far as, the best teams in the country go. And they're going to show that this week. I got the Buckeyes big in this one.
All right.
Like I said, like I said before, you see the flag, you see the shirt, don't care. I truly think that Ohio State is, an elite team. There's talent all over the field on both sides of the ball. The offensive line is coming together. This will be the first true test, though, for the Buckeyes, and I could be wrong. I will eat crow if I am wrong, but I feel good about this one. So look for the Buckeyes to make a statement in South Bend this weekend.
I think they're going to win, but I'm a little bit different. I think this is going to come down to who has the ball last.
Yeah, well, been there before. Don't want to.
I know
you'll
love that. Year.
No, that's fine. It is what it is. I agree. I think it could be that game, but it could also, be a game where the Buckeyes take the top off. So I feel good about Ohio State this week. So we'll move on. Number 5, USC at Arizona State. That's another Pac-12 after dark game. What do you think about the Trojans going into Arizona State?
Yes, minus 34.5 USC after a week off. I don't know if they cover that, but they're going to win by a lot.
Yeah, Trojans big. Caleb Williams looks to continue another, good season for the Trojans, who have momentum in the early going and look to build on that. So Trojans in that one. Moving on up to what preseason looked like it was going to be a pretty big game. Number 4 Florida State at Clemson. Clemson finds themselves unranked again this week. Do you think Clemson could, use that home crowd to their advantage to maybe pull off an upset against Florida State?
I think they could. It's Knowles -2.5, but I think Florida State got a little wake-up call last week after all the hype is surrounding them after beating LSU the first game. They almost let that win against Boston College get away from last week. Give Boston College credit. They played well. But this week, like I said, it's Knowles -2.5. My hot take for this week, I think Florida State is going to blow Clemson out in their own arena.
Yeah, I don't I do not like what I've seen from Clemson at all. Cade Klubnik does not look like the guy that they thought he was going to be. Clemson's defense is not very good. I've got the Knowles big in this one. I think -2.5 is, they didn't look great last week in Boston College, but
I get it's in Clemson, but
yeah, I don't know if that warrants.
There's just something off with them right now.
Yeah, it doesn't seem good for Dabo and company, and I don't think it's going to get any better this week. Knowles big. Moving on up.
Anybody who can cover Florida State's receivers.
No, God, no. It's not the same defense. Brent Venables took that with him to Oklahoma. It just not very good for Clemson in that company right now. So yeah, Knowles big. Moving on. Number 3 Texas at Baylor. What do you think about the Horns?
The Horns kind of had a little bit of scare last week against Wyoming. They a little bit of a hangover, you think, from beating Bama the week before. But yeah, they honestly could be a tough road game this week for them. They're -15, but I think they bounce back after a sluggish game last week and get a big win in Waco.
Yeah, I agree with you there. There have been some weird games in the early going this season, and that one last week for Texas and Wyoming was another one. But it's got to be hard for those guys to walk into an environment after just beating Alabama, walk into Wyoming and play those guys and just kind of, go through the motions and look a little sloppy. But you'll have that. Season has a bunch of ebbs and flows, but I think Texas gets back, to their dominant look against Baylor. Again, moving on up to number 2, Michigan versus Rutgers. This is a game that absolutely nobody cares about nationwide. Rutgers stinks, and Michigan
aren't they 3-0?
Rutgers?
Yeah,
they might be 3-0, but they're not going to win this game. Rutgers stinks. Greg Schiano can't win a big game.
It's in Michigan. They're a scrappy team. It's Wolverines -24. I'll take Rutgers to cover that. Michigan hasn't looked good yet.
And that brings me to my next point. Michigan has not looked good. J.J. McCarthy has not looked good. And yet Michigan stands pat at number 2. Doesn't really make much sense to me. But I have the Wolverines winning this one. Rutgers, I just don't have any faith in them to go and get that win. So I'll take Michigan in that one. And then Georgia continues. It's just, really, really, really tough schedule against UAB. Yeah, this is just miserable once again from Georgia. Georgia will win that game big. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, whatever. Dogs win this one. Last week, man, they're beatable.
100%.
Their defense is elite, like it always is, but they're beatable.
Yeah, they don't.
But
I think
champs until they're not. So
yeah, with a lot of teams, there's a question mark at quarterback, and I think this season more than any, you're seeing a lot of the top programs in the country struggle with finding their way with a first time starter at quarterback, and that showed pretty strongly last week for Georgia, but it will not this week against UAB. But that is the top 25 slate, an exciting, action-packed, ranked matchup-filled week in college football. So we're looking forward to those games. A lot of good ones. So, this season continues to roll. Week 4 in college football. So we will switch gears with concluding the top 25 look ahead for college football and switch to the NFL, where we saw, again, some pretty exciting games last week. A lot of things happened. Another huge huge injury in the NFL. Minka Fitzpatrick takes a really irresponsible shot at Nick Chubb's knee, and just absolutely a gruesome injury. And, watching that play live, you could tell as soon as that camera went to Nick as he was trying to get up off the ground, and he looked at his teammate and just simply shook his head no. And then, they Joe and Troy were watching the replay in the stadium, and I don't think I have ever in my life heard a stadium all at one time gasp that loud, to where you could hear it on TV like Pittsburgh did. Just an absolutely gruesome injury for Nick Chubb. And, you hate to see that same knee that he blew out at Georgia in 2015.
As Adam Schefter so eloquently pointed out.
Yeah, that dude's really got away with words and announcing, important things. But heartbreaking stuff for Cleveland.
It sucks, tough. Man. I saw where he might have to have they're saying he might have to have 2 surgeries, one a few weeks after the first one.
Yeah, it's not great. But on the flip side of that, Cleveland was able to make a splash and sign Kareem Hunt to a 1-year deal worth $4 million. That happened today. So Kareem Hunt back in the fold in Cleveland. And that's not to take away from how Jerome Ford looked in that game after Nick Chubb went out. He ran the ball and showed that he's capable of doing that, but Cleveland needs depth at that position, and they add a weapon in Kareem Hunt. But we will get into this week's slate. Before we move on, do you have anything to say about last week's happenings?
No. I'm sick of being hurt. Panthers, please be better. But no, we'll get into it. So Thursday Night Football tomorrow night, we got Giants at 49ers, San Francisco -10. I'm shocked it's not a little bit more, to be honest with you. I thought the Giants would go into Arizona last week and kind of blow the Cardinals out after getting blown out themselves in week 1 by Dallas. But it came down to the very end of the game for the Giants in that one. And there's rumors that Brian Dable may be taking over play calling duties. But Giants don't look good on either side of the ball right now. 49ers look good in every facet you can imagine in football. I miss you, Christian McCaffrey. Niners big in this one.
Yeah, just not obviously the Giants were able to pull one out last week, but they got absolutely hammered by the Cowboys in week 1 and had to battle back against a pretty bad team last week that they should have, not struggled that hard with. I don't see the 49ers, missing a beat on this one. So I'll take the 49ers big in that one too.
While we're on the topic of the Niners, loser of the week goes to one of my coworkers. Had a 13-team parlay. 12 hit. His last one, he needed a George Kittle anytime touchdown to win $4,000, and it did not happen. Oh. Loser of the week. Sorry, man.
That's gut-wrenching stuff.
Oh, yeah. I'd be mad all week.
I'd punch air. I might never bet again.
Yeah, Niners big in that one.
Yeah.
Moving on to Sunday, you got Saints at Packers. The Saints beat the Panthers on Monday Night Football. Defense looked really good. We knew coming in there we're going to be one of the best defenses in football. The Packers, they had a disappointing loss in Atlanta. Mm-hmm. That game looked to be in hand by them for a little bit, and they kind of just fell asleep at the wheel, and Atlanta shocked them there at the end. But first game back in Lambeau for the Packers, it's Green Bay -2. I think they get the win here at home. I think that place will be fired up for the first home game. I think Jordan Love had a pretty good game last week. I think he bounces back and outplays Derek Carr in this one, and the defense has a really big game too.
Yeah, that was a tough one for Green Bay last week. After looking as good as they did in week 1, now albeit against a pretty bad Bears team still. But I do like what I've seen out of Jordan Love so far. And I really like what I've seen out of the Packers as a whole. They really do seem to have rallied around Jordan in the way that he needs it. And that's, Matt LaFleur's, in my opinion, a pretty good coach. So I think, and take it for what it's worth. The Panthers defense, I thought, played pretty well for the most part on Monday night. But there were some, big plays. Chris Olave had an incredible catch which set up the Saints in a pretty good spot. But I think the Packers being at Lambeau, it's going to be a loud environment. Lambeau's a loud building, and I think they have just a little bit too much for the Saints here. So I will agree with you there. I will go with the Packers.
And next up, we got Indy at Baltimore. Baltimore minus 7.5. Baltimore, massive win going to Cincinnati last week. Lamar played great. They lost Odell to an ankle injury that's not seemed to be serious. I'm not sure if he's playing this week. I think it may have been precautionary. But, yeah, they look really good, man. That Zay Flowers, the receiver they took from Boston College, he's the truth. He had a really big catch early in the game on a deep ball. The running backs, Gus Edwards, filled in nicely for J.K. Dobbins. It's going to be definitely by committee there. Lamar looked good. Yeah, Colts got a good win last week against Texas, rookie quarterback. Anthony Richardson looked good. He had 2 rushing touchdowns early, but he was ruled out a little bit, I think about halfway through the game with a concussion. Definitely a conversation you think Indianapolis is already having with him. Like, look, we know you're 6'5", 250 pounds, but take it easy a little bit, man. This is your first year. Speaking of experience, I saw what happened with Cam.
I was just about to say that.
Yeah, just it wears your body down, I'm sure. But, yeah, regardless of that, I think the Ravens win this one. I think they do cover. I'm not sure if Anthony Richardson is going to play, but Gardner Minshew is not a bad backup, but I don't think they'll be able to keep up with Baltimore at home.
Yeah, it's exciting for Indy when you have Anthony Richardson go out and play like he did last week and look like he did. It's encouraging times in Indy. However, without him in that game, Gardner Minshew, like you said, is a serviceable quarterback, is a serviceable backup at this point in his career. But you look at that other sideline, you got Lamar Jackson out there, and he is an absolute stud, worth every penny that they paid him. So I'll go the Ravens at home in that one too.
I completely forgot the Ravens had Roquan Smith too. So
yes, they do.
Yeah, that defense is pretty good. They definitely made it hard on Joe and the Bengals there for a while. I know they got some. I know they made it closer at the end, but we'll get into that in a little bit.
A lot of really good defense in the AFC North, man. That is going to be. I mean, those divisional matchups are going to be fist fights every single time.
Yep. And then moving on, Titans at Browns. Titans last week. Let's see, who did they play? I can't remember. Bear with me, folks. They played the Chargers and at home, and surprisingly pulled that one out. We'll get into the Chargers in a little bit. I got some stuff to say about them. But Titans at Cleveland. Cleveland coming off a disappointing loss to Pittsburgh, and plus losing Nick Chubb. So it's almost like 2 losses rolled into one. But yeah, it's Cleveland minus 3.5. I think they get the win in front of the dog pound. I think their defense will make life a living hell for Ryan Tannehill. I think they'll slow down Derrick Henry. Tennessee's defense is pretty good, but I think being a home game, I think the Browns will get it rolling on them, and I think Kareem Hunt will have a big first game. I'm interested to see if he plays this quickly. But hope he does. I picked him up on fantasy, but
I did too.
Yeah. Hey,
go us.
I was just going to say, I have my own opinions on him outside of football, but Deshaun Watson, I don't know if you may agree with this, I think he needs to play better. I think Cleveland fans are really waiting to see if he can get back to what he was in Houston before the injuries, the off-field stuff. So, yeah, I think for Cleveland to do anything, Deshaun needs to get back to that point because the defense is very, very good.
Yeah, so it's – I think in my opinion, I don't think Deshaun had a bad game on Monday. I think that opening, first of all, that game might have been one of the most strange football games I've ever watched in my life from start to finish. I mean, that first quarter, the first half felt like it took 4 years, which was miserable, obviously, after the Nick Chubb situation and all that kind of stuff. But that opening interception, I mean, that ball has to be caught. I don't think there's any excuse for that ball. it hit both of that receiver's hands. So that ball should have been caught. And then the fumbles, obviously, like you want to see Deshaun take better care of the ball, and make some better choices. But he made some damn good throws. He threw a dart to Amari Cooper on the sideline. Coop made a great catch on that ball. But you just got to clean it up. Point blank period. You got to clean it up, and you're paid a lot of freaking money, and all of it is guaranteed, which makes my heart hurt because that just might have jumped into something that was too big for Cleveland to get into, but whatever. But the defense in Cleveland is gonna be, it's got to play and make tackles the way that it can. There was a couple plays like Najee had a play where he bounced a run out to the left and was modeled up by Zadarius Smith, but he slipped away from Zadarius and broke it back right for like a 25-yard gain or something like that. You got to limit plays like that. And in my opinion, that's a game that Cleveland should have won on Monday, regardless of all the other circumstances. That's a game that Cleveland should have pulled out. But like you said, with Cleveland, they gotta have Deshaun play better. And I think if Deshaun has a couple plays that go a different way, obviously you don't turn the ball over as many times as you did, and Cleveland does win that game. But no, to your point, the Browns fans are waiting for Deshaun to play better and return to that form before all that garbage happened. And that was pretty loud on Twitter, the fans' opinion of the way that he played and stuff like that. So I don't think that it was a terrible game from Deshaun. But you got to build on the good stuff, and you have to learn from the mistakes that you had, and you can't let that happen again because it was kind of a self-implosion at certain points of the game for Deshaun. So I do think they go and beat a Titans team in Cleveland and get to 2-1.
Yep. And then moving on, you got Denver at Miami. Miami minus 6.5. Denver coming off another disappointing loss at home to the Commanders. And then the Dolphins coming off a Sunday Night Football win against the Patriots. Not very.
What is happening?
Luna wants to give her opinion.
I mean, my God.
She's making the sound that she's coming in late for the Browns prediction. She's picking the Browns and Titans game.
I'll take that.
Yeah. But yeah, back to the Broncos. It's not going too well for old Russ and Sean Payton so far. It's in the back of my head, even when Sean Payton went there, I was thinking, I just don't think Russ has it anymore. And you really wonder if this keeps going like this. If I know they say teams don't actively lose or tank, but you got to think like with next year's quarterback crop, Sean Payton's not thinking, all right, let me see if I can get away from this dude and get my guy in here. But yeah, Dolphins, they look good again. Tua in that offense, and the defense played better this week against the Patriots. I think the Dolphins keep it rolling and win and cover at home.
Yeah, I don't like anything I see in Denver. I don't think Sean Payton's going to be able to fix Russ. And I think I said it last week on the show. I think Russ is just past his prime. I think that's, I think that experiment is going to die sooner rather than later. Dolphins look good, man. They can score, and, the defense is serviceable. So, yeah, I think the Dolphins win this one too.
Moving on, AFC East matchup, Patriots at Jets, New England minus 2.5. Both teams coming off losses. Like we just talked about, Patriots lost to the Dolphins. Jets lost at Dallas. Put up a little bit more of a fight than I thought they would, but Zach Wilson, man, he just doesn't seem like he's it. I know Jets fans were hopeful he could be serviceable after the Achilles injury to Aaron Rodgers. Do just enough, especially with that defense, but just doesn't look like he can. But being back at home, I think the defense will step up and contain Mac Jones and the Patriots offense, which isn't that good anyway. And I think this will be a low-scoring, ugly game, and I think the Jets pull it out at home.
I think if you're Robert Saleh and the Jets, this is one you look at and you're like, if we want to salvage the dream of this season, you got to win this one. They have not looked good without Aaron Rodgers for the most part. They were able to go win week 1 without him, which was a big win. The defense, led them to that victory. But this is a game that you have to go win. Mac Jones doesn't look great. Patriots as a whole really don't look that good. So this is a game that if you're the Jets, you have to go win. So I'm going to pick the Jets in that one.
And then moving on to the next one, Bills at Commanders. Buffalo -6.5. Both teams coming off wins last week. Buffalo blew Las Vegas out. I think that's who they played, if I'm correct. Yep. Blew Las Vegas out in front of the Bills Mafia. Josh Allen had a big bounce back game. I think he had 3 or 4 touchdowns. Defense looked really good, really shut down Las Vegas. Commanders, big win in Denver. They were down for the majority of the game. It came back there at the end. Sam Howell looked good. The defense looked good. Those receivers looked good. But I'm going to take Buffalo in this one. And don't think they cover, though. I think it'll be a field goal game because Washington's, like I said in the preview, don't sleep on Washington. They're a solid team. You got a good coach. Sam Howell's going to keep getting better. Their defense is pretty good. They got weapons in offense. But, yeah, I think they dropped this one, a close one to Buffalo at home this week.
Yeah, and you got to like what you see out of Sam Howell, and you got to really like what you see out of a healthy Chase Young and Montez Sweat combination. Man, they met at the quarterback last week, and it was kind of a situation where Chase kind of looked at Montez, and Montez returned the look and said, "Now we go." Now he's healthy. Now Chase can really get out there and contribute and add to what's a really good defensive line for the Commanders. However, I don't know if they have enough to get it done in this one. I'm going to pick my upset of the week. I'm going to go Commanders to get a big win over the Bills.
I don't hate it. I like it. Yeah, moving on. Next one, we got Atlanta at Detroit. Detroit coming off a tough loss at home against the Seahawks. Falcons coming off a big win at home against Green Bay. Mm-hmm. Unfortunate news adding to the laundry list of injuries, it seems, already in the NFL this year. C.J. Gardner-Johnson looks like he's going to be out for the season with a torn pec. So big loss for that Detroit defense. They're -3 at home, though. Playing a so-so offense, a very run-dependent offense in Atlanta with Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier. Mm-hmm. I think they'll get this win at home. I think they will cover too. I think the defense steps up without Gardner-Johnson there, especially that front seven. They'll slow down Atlanta's run game and Jared Goff and those receivers. And I'm blanking on his name, Jahmyr Gibbs.
Oh,
and
yeah.
David Montgomery will. I got Lions big in this one.
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned it, pretty upsetting loss for the Lions last week. But, Jared Goff is really coming, into the season with a chip on his shoulder. We've talked about that already on the show. But Jared Goff looks pretty damn good, man. And, it's kind of, you love it for him and, as a player to come back and return to his older form when he first got in the league. But, he looks pretty good. And the Lions, albeit in a loss, still look like they're building. And I'll agree there, and I'll go with the Lions to beat a pretty one-dimensional Atlanta team.
Next up, we got AFC South matchup: Texans at Jaguars. Texans coming off a loss to the Colts, where C.J. Stroud, to his credit, played really well. 2 touchdowns, over 300 yards passing behind, I think, 4 backup O linemen too. So definitely. Liking what you see as C.J. Stroud so far. Looks like he could be the real deal, especially hopefully he can keep it rolling. Houston can put some pieces around him. Jaguars coming off a tough loss to the defending champs. They got Chiefs got both Travis Kelce and Chris Jones back last week. It was kind of a ugly game, especially for Jacksonville. But they're -9.5 in this one, being at home. I'll take them to cover that. I just don't think the Houston has enough around C.J. Stroud yet to go into Jacksonville and win this game. And I think the Jags bounce back after a tough loss last week.
Yeah, I have egg on my face for picking CJ to get his first NFL dub last week. That did not happen. However, like you mentioned, looked really good throwing the ball. I mean, and that's the kind of player that CJ is. He can go out there and get you a bunch of passing yards, and he's not really going to turn the ball over. You hope that he builds, week to week and continues to get better. That first win will not come this week, though. Jags will win this one. Just like you said, just not enough around CJ quite yet in Houston.
And then next one, we got the Chargers at the Vikings. This one is even. There's no line either way. Both teams looking for the first win of the season. Chargers dropped an absolute bad loss to Tennessee, albeit on the road. But the Chargers are just an anomaly, man. Like, on paper, like, they look amazing. You got playmakers on both sides of the ball. Justin Herbert is a very good quarterback, but starting to ask myself, is he just all hype? Because, like, he makes amazing plays, but he doesn't seem like – so far, he doesn't seem like the guy who can will his team to a win and make the big plays when you absolutely need it. On the other side, Vikings lost on Thursday night last week to the defending NFC champs. Offense looks really good. The defense just can't stop anybody. Kirk Cousins is putting up crazy numbers. Justin Jefferson is too. But like I just said, their defense just can't stop anybody. But being in this one, I'll take the Vikings to win at home in this one's going to be offensive fireworks in my opinion, because both defenses don't seem like they can stop anybody.
Yeah, the Vikings, who I think earlier today added Cam Akers from the Rams, which is going to be a guy that can walk into Minnesota and help that offense out. And like you said, man, I don't know what needs to happen in Los Angeles for the Chargers, but it just year after year.
Go back to San Diego.
It's a start. That would definitely be a start. But just year after year, talented on paper, a lot of expectation coming out of camp, and it just year after year they have head-scratching losses that you just can't figure out how it's happening. Yeah. Especially with the talent that they have. You got Herbert, Austin Eckler, Keenan Allen, Mike Williams, or Mike Wallace, Mike Williams.
Anyways. Yeah, and you look at the other side of the ball, man. You got Joey Bosa, Khalil Mack, Derwin James. Like,
it doesn't make sense. Nothing about what the Chargers do year after year makes sense.
Obviously, the low-hanging fruit is coaching. Do they need a new voice?
Yeah, and I've heard a lot of Chargers fans, just kind of scratch their heads and say, "What the hell is it going to take? How many losses, bad losses, no less, are you going to need to see to make a change?" And it's just, I don't know. It doesn't make any sense at all. And you look at them every year and it's like, you think you want to pick the Chargers so bad, but like I said, year after year, they do the same thing. Vikings win this week.
Next, we got Panthers at Seahawks getting into the 4:00 games. Seahawks coming off a really big win on the road at Detroit. Geno Smith played really good. Tyler Lockett had a big game, caught the go-ahead touchdown on that one. Panthers coming off a tough loss at home to New Orleans. The defense played really good, but same song and dance for the past few years. Defense plays really good for the majority of the game. Offense doesn't help them out. The defense is worn out by late third quarter, fourth quarter, and they give up a score, and the offense just can't overcome it. Seattle -6 in this one. I'll take them in that to cover, especially since I saw today Bryce Young didn't practice. Apparently he has an ankle injury. Frank Reich didn't elaborate too much on how serious it is, but a lot of injuries for the Panthers right now too. They lost Shaq Thompson, the leader of their defense, for the year, broken fibula. Yeah, tough times in Pantherland right now. I still believe in Bryce. He is doing some good things. Unfortunately, his receivers just can't get open. I think I saw like a stat or something where he's like in the lower tier of throwing to like open windows or something. I'm probably butchering the stat, but his guys just aren't getting open. And there were a few passes last week. He threw like early anticipated passes to them, and they just didn't break the route right or get there in time. So he has his faults too. I mean, he's turned the ball over 3 times so far, something you wouldn't expect out of him. But I believe in the kid, man. I think he has it up here to keep getting better. I do think the coaching staff needs to there needs to be some better play calling around him. But fortunately, I think the Panthers go to 0-3 this week and the Seahawks win.
Yeah, it's a tough spot for the Panthers, and as you mentioned, some injury things that are going on. But it's there's going to be some lumps. It's a brand new coaching staff, brand new quarterback, rookie quarterback. So a lot of growing pains that are going to happen in Charlotte. But you gotta have, like, Adam Thielen came over for a reason, and he's got to play better. And some of the other guys need to play better as well in that offense.
Running backs need to play better. Miles Sanders, came over on a 3 or 4 year deal, and he hasn't done anything yet.
Yeah. So a lot of things need to be figured out for the Panthers. Seattle, seems to have some things figured out more so than the Panthers do.
That's a tough place to play too.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it is. It's one of the loudest environments in the NFL. That's a tough ask for the Panthers, especially if they're not going to have Bryce back there, quarterback. I think Seattle does cover as well.
I will say my message to all the Panthers fans already calling Bryce a bust after 2 games. RELAX. Panthers fans.
Spelling's hard.
Yeah, it is. Sorry, I was just still mad about the loss. But, yeah, moving on. Cowboys at Cardinals in this week's lopsided game of the week. Dallas -12. Yeah, Cowboys, they win.
Is that actually America's game of the week?
I hope not. I don't know if it is. Bears at Chiefs is next. Maybe that's it. But
oh God. All right. Yeah, Cowboys large.
Yeah, the defense is very, very, very good. But like I keep saying, we'll see how Dak can ruin this for them.
It's bound to happen sooner or later.
It's gonna happen. I'm staking my claim right here on episode 12 of High Street Sports.
It's not far-fetched at all.
Yeah, fingers crossed. I think I texted you. It's bad for everybody when Cowboys fans are happy. I'm sorry if you're a Cowboys fan. It just is.
It's miserable.
But hey,
it's their year. It's always their year.
They're really good. Gotta give them credit. The defense especially. Moving on to the next most likely lopsided game of the week. Bears at Chiefs. Kansas City -12.5. Bounce back win for the defending champs, getting Kelsey and Chris Jones back. Kind of a ugly win in Jacksonville, but they're back home this week against a Bears team that's really struggling. Who did they play last week? I can't remember off the top of my head.
The Bears?
Oh, they played the Buccaneers, and just stunk it up. Lost there. Neither side of the ball looked good. Justin Fields, he's really struggling. His offensive line isn't doing him any favors. Hoping to see some more out of him and just the whole team in general, especially DJ Moore. They gave up a lot to get him. He hasn't really done much yet, but regardless, Chiefs in this one, and I think they cover.
Yeah, I mean, point blank period, you can't go every week and blame the rest of the Bears and not say anything about Justin. I mean, he's got to play better. And the Bears as a whole have to play better, and Justin's got to be the leader that points that team in the right direction as the quarterback, and they got to do something quick. But, yeah, I have no faith in the Bears in this one.
Did you see his press conference earlier today? Well, they asked him – someone asked him along the lines of why he's, like, playing so robotic, and all he said was coaching. So,
not great.
I mean – he could be right, but, I mean, that's just not something you really say, I feel like, in a press conference, especially when you're struggling like they are. But, hey, maybe they'll surprise us. Probably not.
Yeah.
But
ain't going to happen.
Yeah. Moving on to Sunday Night Football, Steelers at Raiders, Las Vegas -2.5. Both teams coming off some tough losses last week. Steelers did get the win. For some reason, I keep thinking the Browns won. I'm sorry. I don't know why.
Well, they should have, but, that's neither here nor there.
Yeah. Steelers coming off a win at home, their first win of the season, clear mostly on the back of their defense. Raiders coming off a big loss on the road to Buffalo. Like I said, Las Vegas -2.5. This one's a tough one. I'll go with the Raiders in this one, being at home, having a little bit better quarterback and Jimmy G and Devontae Adams and Josh Jacobs. Steelers, I do think their defense could steal this one, though. I think J.J. Watt tweeted it that his brother is the best defensive player in the world, and I don't think that's far-fetched at all. The dude is ridiculous. But, yeah, I'll take the Raiders in this one. Not a confident pick, but I'll take them.
Yeah, and I mean, the Browns should have won that game on Monday. The Steelers won that game, just like you said, on the back of their defense. 14 defensive points for the Steelers, which outscored their offense in that one. The Steelers' offense is absolutely putrid. George Pickens is good. Najee Harris can run the football pretty well. I'm not sold on Kenny Pickett yet, but the rest of the Steelers offense absolutely is horrible. And that was a game that they stole. And I don't like much about the Steelers outside of their defense. TJ Watt is dominant. He, for the most part, had a really good game. DeJuan Jones had some pretty good, plays against him and was able to block him on a few. But you can't, you can only hope to contain him a little bit. You're not going to stop him, especially not with a rookie out there. So I don't like the Steelers offense at all. And I don't really think that they can do enough to win this game this week. And that's, it's kind of where I am with the Steelers.
So Raiders.
Yes, Raiders. Yes.
Steelers still probably will finish with a winning record because
that's all Mike Tomlin does.
Yeah, Mike Tomlin doesn't play losing records.
Yeah, no.
Yeah, moving on to the first of, again, 2 Monday night games. I guess this is a thing now. Yeah. Eagles at Buccaneers. Phillies -5. Got the win last week in prime time on Thursday night against the Vikings. Bucks got the win at home against the Bears. Buccaneers look really good so far, man. Baker looks good. That defense looks really good. Mike Evans looks phenomenal, which if you're a Buccaneers fan, you're really kicking that. You probably punching air that they didn't sign him to a new contract. The dude just does what he always does and produces. But yeah, this one it's a tough one. But I'll take Philly on the road here. I think their defense will really bother Baker in that offense, and I think Jalen Hurts and the Eagles offense can get it done against that Bucs defense.
Yeah, I mean, if you're the Buccaneers, I don't understand why you don't throw basically whatever Mike Evans wants at him. I mean, he's been the mainstay on that offense since he got drafted there, and he does nothing but perform week in and week out. So it's a weird situation. But you're right, Baker does look good, and it's kind of surprising how good he looks and how good the Buccaneers look as a whole. But that's a big ask going up against the defending NFC champions. Jalen Hurts and the Eagles are a tough team to play, and I think they get it done and hand the Buccaneers a loss.
And the second Monday night game is Rams at Bengals. Cincinnati's -2.5. Bengals looking for their first win of the season. I know there's some concern with Joe Burrow. He irritated his calf that he injured in the preseason or in off-season workouts in training camp. Rams coming off a loss. I think it was at home to San Francisco last week. Yep, at home to San Francisco last week. This one's a tough one too because not sure what the status of Joe is. I mean, as far as I know, he's probably going to play. But the Rams, they got a good defense. Sean McVay's offense, they're always going to produce. But I will take the Bengals in this one. I think they get their first win. The if here is if Joe plays, obviously. But if he does play, I think he's going to be really motivated. He has started 0-2 before. They typically don't, like you've pointed out, they typically don't get off to hot starts, which, I mean, it is what it is, but they started 0-2 last year and finished, 12-4, 13-3, something like that. But yeah, I think Cincy gets the win, their first win of the season at home on Monday night.
Yeah, and you hit the nail on the head, man. The Bengals have struggled to get out of the gate, and you gotta wonder how bad that calf is really bothering Joe.
His offensive line isn't helping him either.
No, it's not, and that's something where you expected that to get addressed in the offseason, and it really didn't, which was kind of a head scratcher. But if you're the Bengals, you absolutely cannot afford to go 0-3, and you cannot go 0-3 and lose against a Rams team that nobody really knows what you're going to get out of the Rams, and they kind of look to start to be sellers, it would appear, maybe with that trade of Cam Akers. Who knows what you're going to get out of the Rams, but if you're the Bengals, you have to go out and win this one. Cannot start 0-3 and expect to finish 12-4, or whatever the case is. So for the Bengals, I picked them in the preview to be the Super Bowl champion. They are not looking good right now, but for my sake and the picks in this show's sake, I have to pick the Bengals here to right the ship and get going. So it's a big game for the Bengals, man. This is it's about as early as you can get for a must-win game in Cincinnati, but this feels like a must-win game in Cincinnati.
Yeah, Aaron Donald versus their interior offensive line makes me nervous.
Yeah, especially if Joe's got a gimp leg too. I mean,
yeah,
he's going to need to run away from him. So we'll see what happens, but hopefully the Bengals can go out there and get a win.
Yeah, that's it for this week's NFL slate. Talked to Chris about doing this. We'll keep track of our records throughout the season with our picks. So far, I was 8-8 in week 1, 10-6, a little bit better last week, so bringing me to 18-14 on the year. I think, Chris, you're about the same thing, right? We talked about earlier.
Exactly the same thing. I'm 18-14. So hopefully this week we can, make that record a little bit better. But yeah, that was the preview for this week's college football top 25 slate, as well as the NFL slate. A lot of exciting football coming. We're really just, getting started with the NFL, moving quickly through the college football season already. So we've got a lot of exciting football on this week. This was another edition of High Street Sports, guys. Remember, like I said earlier, go to the YouTube page, subscribe, like, comment, do all 3 of them, do them all at one time. If you've got more than one device, do one-on-one, comment on the other, do whatever you can.
Make multiple accounts.
Whatever you got to do. Let's get the numbers up. Let's shoot this show to the moon. Thank each and every one of you week in and week out for being on this journey with us. We're about to hit 3,000 views, which is really, really exciting. But I think I was looking through the analytics, and there's still roughly like 47% of you guys that watch that aren't subscribed. So let's fix that. That's my call to action this week. Let's fix that. Let's get you guys subscribed so you don't miss anything that comes out of High Street Sports. We're going to have a lot more coming at you this season all year long for football, and as we move into the other sports in the fall. So, John Ross, thank you, man. This is fun, as always, this week. Looking forward to this week's college football and NFL football. That is another edition of High Street Sports. Thanks, guys.
Yes, sir. Thanks, guys.